Skilled labor shortage solved, bringing European craftsmen to North America to work. If you're having trouble finding people, if you wish you had people who really took the trades seriously, who had formal education, I'm talking multi-generational trades training, I think you're going to really enjoy today's episode and get a lot from Sam Schneider. Sam's in Germany. And as we do the interview, he's preparing to move to Switzerland. You're going to hear it in the interview. He's actually doing the interview with me and then jumping in the truck with his family and moving everybody to Switzerland. Talk about time usage. But we are going to be sharing the secrets, the inside tracks, the cool things other contractors already doing all around you. And they're things that you can do too. Maybe you just needed to find out about it. One of the things that I tasked my team on doing is always finding us the most interesting guests. And I think we did a great job. My team did a great job here. So I'm very proud to bring this to you. As you guys know, I'm trying a new format for the show. That means the dad jokes are getting phased out. Sorry to some of you. Others of you are happy because you asked for that in the feedback I asked for. So dad jokes like, what do you call a chicken that stares at lettuce in your garden? Chicken sees a salad. Those kind of jokes are gone. There's just no room for it in the show. You guys have been very clear. You didn't want to hear them anymore. So I promise I'm not going to do those anymore. Listen, we're talking about people. We're talking about growing your team. And so we have a professional development tool available to you if you need it to help you grow your team. It's called the onboarding SOP. SOP, of course, stands for Standard Operating Procedure. It's a very interesting document. It is one of the ones that people request from us quite a bit. So if you don't have it, you're going to want to download that. It's got things like, when you're onboarding somebody, when you're bringing them on board, right, that has a lot of impact on how they stay with your company and how they contribute to your company. Or if you're going to lose them right away and they're going to churn out, you don't want that with these European craftsmen, of course. So this SOP has the overall agenda and the calendar, the 4 stages of onboarding. You might be curious about that. We also have in there scripts for you to use on your internal email, scripts for the employee email, steps for training, a calendar for what to do when, how to talk about company culture and rules, and just tons more. I'm not going to read the whole document, but if you want it, send me a text. You guys know my cell phone. It's 315-903-7853 and just say onboarding SOP, and then I know which one to send you. All right, let's get to the interview with Sam Schneider. You are going to love this. We'll see you on the other side. Sam Schneider, how are you?
Good. Hey, Dominic, it's so great to see you.
Yeah, really good to see you as well. Oh, my glasses are making me blue on this video.
I mean, we've actually never met each other in person, right? I mean, I'm sitting over here in Germany. You're in North America, so it's like but it's so crazy what the internet just brings together, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. What time is it for you right now?
It's 6 p.m. I hope the kids. So we've just had our family dinner. I hope the kids aren't too loud, but you know how it is.
Yeah. Well, it's 9 a.m. here, and
okay.
And you just said something kind of interesting before we started. And we're here today to talk about something cool.
Yeah.
Before I ask this question, which is how to bring people from Europe over to North America who are interested in working in construction trades and carpentry. But you told me you're moving, and what 2 countries are you moving between?
So I'm actually moving. So I live in Berlin, Germany at the moment. I've lived here with my wife, now wife, then girlfriend, for 8 years. And, Berlin is exciting when you're in your mid-20s. There's lots of nightlife. There's lots of culture, good food and stuff like that. But we have 2 kids now. Our families both live in Switzerland, so we're both from the same. I have no idea if you're aware of the geography, but there's what's called the Lake of Constance in Switzerland. It's a big lake. At the borders of Austria, Switzerland, and Germany. So that's where we're from. Mountains, more kind of countryside living. So we're like, we want to go back to where our families are from. And, with the kids, I think I grew up in a small town. I mean, by small town, I mean village.
Right.
And I really like the way I grew up, go out, play in the streets, play hockey on the streets, stuff like that, and I think Berlin is not that same of atmosphere. Yeah.
Well, it's exotic to us over here, but a lot of people don't know who you are. Now I think they know from the title that we're going to talk about how to bring over skilled craftsmen from Europe to North America, which is pretty cool. But before we do that, Sam Schneider, who the heck are you? And how is it that you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing contractor business owners around the world?
Yeah, Dominic, I suppose the second answer The second question is, it's up to you to answer that because you found me, right? But
yeah, I did.
To get back to your first question, about 8 or 9 years ago, I mean, perhaps I studied. I went to college, right? And during college, I had this awesome opportunity to go spend an exchange semester abroad. And when I entered the workforce, I spent about 1.5 years in the Swiss military, because it's mandatory, right? We've got mandatory military service in Switzerland, and you're kind of mixed with all different kinds of folk. So we had construction workers, we had carpenters, we had college folk like me. So you had everything. So I have a couple of very close friends that work in the trades, and I got to know them quite well, and I know that they take a huge amount of pride in what they do, right? But they always told me, listen, I mean, it's so sad because kind of society doesn't, you know how society doesn't really appreciate the trades as much as they might somebody that went to college, right? So I suppose it's the same in North America, where, you know, parents tell their kids, hey, go to college, you know, that's the way to go. And, you know, we'll pay you $200,000, $1 million for your college tuition. And then you go study social sciences or something, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, we had these guys, they're super skilled, took huge pride in their jobs. So after college, I was like, okay, what can I do to show society how cool these guys are and to give something back to them, right? And I just kind of combined these two things where I was like, hey, for me, that exchange semester during college was one of the most kind of inspiring times of my life. You know, I was 24. Sure. I spent 6 months in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
That's pretty exotic too.
Yeah, that's pretty exotic, right? And I was like, okay, what are Germans and Swiss known for in North America, in Australia, New Zealand, like all these countries?
Old world quality care.
Exactly.
Detail. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, what are like Germans and Swiss known for? What's the like not superstition? What's the better word for that? Like the prejudice that people have, and they're like
mystique.
Everybody.
Mystique might be the right. Yeah.
Perhaps like everybody knows if I say that's a German carpenter, like a lot of North Americans will be like, oh yeah,
perfect.
We know what you're talking about, right? And then I talked to a lot of these guys, and they were all like, hey, we'd love to. Like, I think Buenos Aires is a bit too exotic for us, but we speak a bit of English, you know, so we'd love to go to some kind of English-speaking country. So that's kind of how my business really started. I had a couple of young carpenters, roofers, woodworkers, you name it, just building trades. And I started calling up. I started calling up companies in North America. You know, I looked up kind of chambers. I think the way it worked is I looked on Wikipedia, which is the state in the US with the highest percentage of German heritage, right? I was like, okay, if they have a big amount of German heritage, they're bound to understand what a German carpenter can do, right? Do you know which state it is?
Somewhere in the Midwest, Michigan, or
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah, well, Minnesota has a huge population, but I suppose other states do as well. Anyway, I started calling up like the Chamber of Commerce, Chamber of like trades and stuff like that, and
excellent.
Just
what a great idea.
Started executing, and then we had a couple of companies that like, you know, if it doesn't cost us anything and we can try this out, you know, let's do it. And I was like, you know, I'll bring them over. You only pay if I'm successful. And we sent the first couple of guys over, did their visas, accommodation, everything, and then I think that was back in 2017, 18 when our first couple of guys hit Minneapolis.
You've been doing this a while. You've been. Hey, I had asked you this question in our pre-interview, just so we get a sense of how much of this is going on in North America. How many are coming over from Europe to North America to work? Let's say a year or.
Yeah. So I have to say we kind of had to pause the business during COVID because, you know, all the borders were closed, right? Nothing went. So although I've been doing this since 2017, it was really 2017 to 2019. And then 2022, we had to like
reinvent.
End of 2022, I had to reinvent the whole thing, basically. We nearly went bankrupt during COVID.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But now I think in 2023, we're at like 90 to 100 people that went abroad. I think 2024 we doubled. So I think we sent close to 200 people to North America. Also Australia, New Zealand, by the way, but mainly like North America this year.
Wow. Yeah, well, we have listeners from New Zealand, Australia, South Africa.
Great.
Not very far from you. We've got people listening from Ireland and other parts of Europe as well. So maybe you guys could just walk over.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. But yeah, look, I mean, the vision of the whole thing is really this. Of course, I mean, in the end, it benefits businesses because they get super skilled staff, right? But it's also about really elevating how people see the trades. And I have a lot of my clients tell me, listen, I get great workers from you, but another plus is that, when I have local applicants, they're like, oh, it's so cool to work for your company. You've got like these European dudes, and I can actually work and learn a lot from them and stuff like that. So it has like kind of additional benefits that you can't really feel at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, it just adds to the culture and the background of your company. So let me just start at the beginning. Why would a German, Austrian, or Swiss carpenter, carpenter, electrician, plumber, all those things?
Carpenter, electrician, plumber, Finnish carpenters, roofers, you name it. Okay. Any kind of building trade, basically. We also do a bit of manufacturing, but many building trades. Yeah.
So why do they want to come over? What's driving them? So we understand.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at these guys, right, they're usually between kind of 21 to 35. That's kind of the demographic, more or less. Probably averaging 24, 25, 26, something like that. And they're at a point in their life, they've passed their apprenticeship. They've worked for a couple of years. They might not be kind of married yet, don't have kids. So for them, it's really that kind of thing where it's like, hey, if I want to do something like this, if I want to spend some time abroad and experience another culture and learn English or improve my English, see another part of the world, it's now or never, right? So either they do it now, but once you hit your 30s, once you get married, you have a kid or you have a dog, life gets more complicated.
Does it really?
Yeah. No, I thought so, but
So, out of curiosity, where is the big mythical destination for them? Like like, where do they all want to go to? The mountains, the ranches, the ocean, the big city? What's their big thing?
Yeah. So, look, I mean, we do have a couple of, I would always say, these standard mythical destinations where everybody wants to go to, but they end up not being as cool as they thought they were. So we've got one partner company in Los Angeles, right? And everybody's like, oh, I want to go to Los Angeles, Hollywood, great. But then they go there and they're like, oh my God, I'm paying $1,500 for a shared room or something like that. It's not, I'm not going anywhere, like, right? But then we have people going to the Twin City area, Minneapolis, or even a bit outside of that. And they're like, I never thought this could be so beautiful. There's all these lakes. I can go ice fishing. Summer is great. So I think I love companies that are in not so obvious, cool locations. So they're not overpriced. There's still kind of this family feeling there most of the times, and the partner companies, we send them to our kind of, owner-led, and they have this really, that's the real cultural experience. I mean, yeah, Los Angeles is nice, but it's overpriced and overhyped.
Yeah. So I imagine myself at the age when I wanted to go backpacking around the world. You just want adventure. And I can now imagine what if I was a German carpenter? Would I want to come over and stay in the Lakes District building cabins and cottages? And that would be incredibly beautiful. It's beautiful anyways, whether it's in Vermont or whether it's in Colorado or maybe up in British Columbia. Those are those exotic locations to these guys, and so they're really trying to come over?
I mean, it really depends on who we're talking about. So we've got a couple of, so Switzerland, Austria, Germany, although for you guys it might seem like the same thing. Like if you live in northern Germany, you don't have mountains, right? So a lot of these guys are like, oh, we have partner companies in British Columbia, Canada, for example, and they're like, oh, I'd love to go to British Columbia, Squamish, whatever else is there, right? You kind of see the mountains, do snow sports. Or we have partner companies in Colorado, kind of Steamboat Springs is probably a bit more touristy destination there. We also have a partner company farther up. I think it's the highest city in the US, but I forgot its name.
Leadville,
I think. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got a partner company up there, which is very exotic for kind of somebody who grew up on the North Sea, and it's just flat and wind farms and the North Sea, So
okay, yeah. So to me, that sounds exotic, but I guess it's always your perspective, where you are and where you want to be, and
absolutely,
and so
and it's all Sorry, go on.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we've got people coming from big cities like Berlin or Zurich or wherever else, and for them, the perspective of spending some time in the countryside, not forever, but spending some time in some small town in Minnesota, or spending some time in Steamboat Springs, or any other small town in Colorado is actually quite attractive, because they're like, okay, it's not going to be forever. It's like a 1-year experience for me.
Right.
And it's awesome, so I think it's always your perspective. And I think these contractors or building businesses are very thankful, because they have problems attracting local staff, right? Because a lot of that local staff wants to live in the big cities.
Yeah. So it's almost the reverse.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting opportunity that you've created here for both sides, for the contractors who are looking for skilled people. And I'd like to go back and actually talk about how people get into the trades there, because I understand it's multi-generational. My dad was a carpenter. My grandfather was a carpenter.
Yeah.
And so I'm is it a guild? Do you call it guilds over there?
No, I mean, so I think just it's probably not as romantic as you imagine it to be, but I do think like the probability of a son or a daughter going into trades if their father or mother were already in the trades is higher. But it's not like the guild that was, I think, medieval times. But we do have a very structured apprenticeship system here. So kind of, after high school or even during high school, a lot of people don't go to college, but they decide to go on and do an apprenticeship, which is state certified, very structured. They have two days of school a week, 3 days of work with their sponsoring company, for example.
Okay.
So that actually goes back to medieval times when there were still guilds and stuff like that, which was kind of this very structured on the job training. But yeah, it's generational. Perhaps if you're like your parents have their own business, but I would imagine it's a similar thing in North America, right? If your parents own a well-running construction business, it's just quite probable
for you to go.
Yeah.
Well, and some run away from it. Some don't want it.
Yeah, that's true.
So
but,
how long can they stay?
So it kind of depends on the country. Well, in North America, we've got Canada and the US as options. Sorry about that. So in the US, it's up to 18 months with the visa that we're working with. So we're trying to work with a visa that is very quick in terms of getting it in a turnaround time. So it takes like 3 months to get it. In Canada,
fast.
it's up. Yeah, that's fast.
Yeah.
Compare that to like an H-1B visa, which is a different type of visa in the US. Takes like 2 years to get it. And then in Canada, they can stay up to 2 years, most of them. But what you have to realize, the way we work together with our partner companies is that we usually set up a program where they're like, okay, listen, we've got 20 builders on our crew, right? And we'd love to have 4 of your German carpenters with us at all times. So the way we would do it is like, let's say we start off this program right now is we'd say, okay, let's work up to those 4 guys. It'll take us like 3 or 4 months to ramp this up. And once you've got your level of 4 guys, we're going to replace them as they rotate out. So like, let's say Simon rotates out now, we'll send you Tim. And then 3 months later, it'll be Hans rotating out, and we'll send a next guy. So we'll always look that you'll maintain your level of 4 builders. And the good thing about that is also there's kind of, once you've started working with us, they start communicating between each other. So the guys that are already there, they start communicating with the incoming class, right? And so they already educate themselves.
It gets easier as you go along. Like anything, the more you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned the ramp up time. If I called you out of the blue right now, and let's say I was a roofer or a home renovator, maybe we do some new builds, but general carpentry,
finish carpentry, general carpentry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say that I just called you today. What would what would that process look like?
So I think, just as a disclaimer, I think we're not a quick fix. So if you're looking for a super quick fix, you're better off talking to your local labor hire company or whatever. What I think, we're kind of a medium-term solution where you're like, okay, I want to grow my team from 20 to 25, and I'm okay for 5 of those guys to be journeyman, and I'm forward planning. So we like companies that have kind of a 6 to 12 month outlook. It shows they have a certain degree of professionality. So I love one man shows, and I think it's great if you work for yourself, but that's not kind of the ideal partner company we look to work together with, right? Sure. So we want to work together with companies that have like a reliable pipeline. And if you call me today, kind of depending on how fast you're at making decisions, it'll probably take us. So once you give us the go ahead to look for people, it'll probably take us like 2 or 3 weeks to find the first suitable candidates. We'll start advertising for you. We'll do social media posts. We'll do newsletters for our new partner company in wherever you are. And then we'll present like 2 or 3 candidates to you. You can interview them all. And then we usually try to place 1 or 2 people to start out with. Even if you tell me, Dominic, if you would come today and tell me I want to have 10 people, we'll still only start you off with 1 or 2.
1 or 2.
And the reason is, my experience is every foundation needs to be built on trust. And I think talking is great, but acting or kind of what comes after that is more important. Yeah. So it's a get to know each other phase where, you want to get to know how we work and how the first candidates perform. But we also, imagine you're a parent of Hans who's going to the US for 12 months, right? So you're trusting, like you're trusting Journeyman or us to really vet the companies we work together with. So we want to get those first 1 or 2, probably a bit more senior candidates out there and kind of see how they feel about the whole thing. We've had situations before where we had to cancel and kind of replace them with other companies, right? But it's easier to do that if you only have 1 or 2 guys there instead of having 10 all at once.
Right. So it's a walk before you run type of thing. And let's get to know each other.
Exactly. So if you come to me today and say, hey, I want to ramp up to 10 people, I'll be like, hey, we can have the first 1 or 2 guys with you in 3 or 4 months. Then let's do 2 months to see how that goes, how we both feel about each other. And then within another 3 or 4 months, we can ramp up to those 10 people. But it's kind of it takes some foundation. It takes a good foundation to make a partnership like this prosper. But, we have partner companies that have been with us since 2017. Or most of them have actually. Like if once you start working with us, you don't stop, except if there's COVID, which sucks for everyone. But
stopped a lot of things.
Yeah, stopped a lot of things. But we've actually had. Sorry, one last thing. The only reason I started back up in 2022 is because I had 3 customers after COVID coming to me and saying, "Sam, the borders are open again. We're guaranteeing you XYZ dollars per month if you start your business again."
Really?
Yeah.
It was that value. So the people are seeing that kind of traction out of this, and you're sending a couple hundred a year, and it's increasing. So it's increasing. Yeah, kind of a testimony to itself. You mentioned your English is excellent.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that I can interview your guys beforehand, and I know there's no absolutes in this world, but what's the level of English of a classic or typical applicant?
Yeah. So I always say, don't expect them to write you a kind of a Shakespearean novel or something like that. I can't
do that either. So,
yeah. But look, I mean, our schooling system in Germany and Switzerland is that we start learning English when at the age of 10 or something like that in mandatory school. So by the age they're 18, 19, 20, they'll have like good small talk skills. I mean, some are better, some are worse, but it's usually enough to have like a simple conversation. And then we have coaching programs internally at Journeyman. So if we see that like a candidate isn't good enough yet for an interview, he can buy English lessons from us. So we have like a service provider where they can take like 5 to 10 English lessons, and we do individualized coaching with them to get them up to speed on like the technical terminology for the interviews, etc. So by the time they hit those interviews, they're usually quite well prepared. And then, truth be told, once they start working, it takes them 2 or 3 weeks, and they're fluent.
They're young enough to still learn stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, you mentioned technical, and so I wonder, over here it's imperial, inches, feet, and over there, I think you guys are metric, so centimeters and meters. How do you guys deal with that? Or do I have to change my whole country, my whole company over to?
Yeah, that's the expectation. Like you have got one German guy coming, and you have to change your whole company.
Of course.
No. So we help with that. We actually have branded tape measures that we give out to our journeymen that have centimeters on one side and inches on the other side. So that kind of helps them adjust a bit. I think it's this kind of worry that comes up often with new partner companies, but that ends up to be a non-starter in terms of worries. I mean, the guys just adjust. It takes them a week or two, and they're like, they probably have to measure, like they do. I would say if you've got like a carpenter that's been on the job, like apprenticeship plus 2 or 3 years of experience, he's probably got a lot of it in his feeling what like a meter is. So he'll probably need to measure a couple of more times when he's over there just to get the same feeling for feet and inches.
Sure.
But we've never, I think I've had a complaint once from a customer. He was like, look, I love you guys, but they celebrated Oktoberfest on one of our construction sites, and that's like a no-go. Do you know what Oktoberfest is? Yeah. So they just got a huge amount of beer and celebrated on the construction site, which was, not ideal.
That's not what we're going to do.
They were told off very sternly. They all said sorry, and it never happened again. But I've never had anybody complain about them not being able to translate metric to imperial.
I think, Sam, there's a lot of people listening who are happy that they can read a tape measure, because tragically, the world changed when people stopped learning how to change their own tires. And there's a lot of kids that come out of school that don't know how to read a tape measure. So if your guys know how to read a tape measure, it doesn't matter. They'll figure it out.
I'll tell you, they can even read blueprints. Imagine that, a carpenter that can read a blueprint. It might sound funny, but perhaps it's not always the case.
Now, I know you don't mention partner companies specifically, but you've mentioned Steamboat Springs and
Leadville.
Now I forgot it. What's without mentioning the company, what's the scope of work they're doing on those job sites?
Yeah. So in Steamboat Springs, we've got a partner company that does kind of how do you call it? Design build. They've got a design build approach. So they design kind of these kind of high end ski resort mansions and also build them, right? So
wouldn't want to go work there, right?
Absolutely. So those are, and they're a very good partner company. They've always got 4 of our guys on rotation. I think they even bought apartments just for them and rent them out to them. So they've got accommodation covered, because Steamboat can be a bit of a,
it's probably like Whistler place. Or Vale.
Yeah, probably.
Where you've got hard to get accommodations.
Yeah. But I think they're a company of like 30 or 40, and they always have like 4 of our guys on rotation. And our guys tend to end up staying the whole 18 months with them, I think, because they like it so much. And then Leadville, I think that's actually a kind of architectural millwork business. So they also do and they were actually partner companies. So the one referred us to the other, because I think the Leadville company did business
makes the cabinetry, makes the millwork.
Yeah, exactly. That did the installations and stuff like that.
Yeah, a wide variety of skills. Then you mentioned plumbers. You've mentioned
plumbers not so much. Actually, plumbers is a bit of a. We'd love to do more of that, but it's a bit difficult in terms of licensing requirements in different states, right?
Sorry, you're right, of course.
So it's more like if we've got like commercial plumbing companies that go out in crews, and our guys can come on as apprentices because they can't be officially licensed there. That's easier. But our favorite trades are probably like carpenters, finished carpentry, roofers. We've got cabinet makers, joiners, woodworkers. We've got a couple of we've started doing a couple of like concrete kind of workers as well for like commercial builds.
Right.
So that's also kind of a trade we're kind of looking at the moment. We've had people asking for painters, gardeners. So that's a bit like gardeners is a bit off. So we don't do that, but painters is something we've also started looking into.
Yeah, I wish I'd known when I was running my painting companies, which was
you did have one. Yeah.
The very start of my trades was in painting. Now, you mentioned accommodations a second ago, and I thought we should touch on that because I don't understand how this works. So let's say that I'm bringing you in. Let's Texas. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
somewhere in Texas.
Yeah.
Am I responsible to put them up, or because they don't know the language, they don't know which websites to look for apartments, they don't even know the nice part of town? How do we navigate that?
Yeah, basically our Journeyman takes care of all of that, right? So we tell you, look, you pay us a fee. We've got like the full service package, and that means we'll bring your candidate that you can interview and then make an offer to. But once you've made an offer to a candidate and they've accepted, we'll take care of their visa. We'll make sure that they find appropriate accommodation. That means we'll work together because we've done this in a lot of different parts of the US and Canada, so we know which websites to look for. So we usually recommend they book an Airbnb for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then we help them contact local shared apartment providers or stuff like that, for example, right? Or even,
Sure.
we've had people stay with an elderly couple because they had a free room in their house, and that's also kind of a nice kind of arrangement. And you can find it on Craigslist, you can find it on Facebook marketplaces. So we help them kind of navigate that landscape. And then we help them get a bank account. We help them get their their US driver's license. So they need to take the German driver's license and go to like the authorities, exchange that.
Oh, right, the international driver's license.
Yeah, buy a car if need be. So it's like we've got pretty much we've got like a blog post and like a tutorial on each of these life skill tasks that they need to perform in like the first week when they get there. So it's really, we recommend that, let's say Simon would go to, let's say he goes to a Twin City area. So we'd recommend to Simon, hey Simon, if you want to start on January 15th, be sure to arrive there on like January 5th. So you have enough time to kind of get set up, get your social security number, get your bank account. Exactly. Right. Yeah. We do have we take care of all of that. That being said, we do have a couple of partner companies that are like, hey, we love your program so much. Like our boss, like the owner of the company, I've got like a little garden house that they can stay in for the first 2 weeks. Like it's just basically two beds in an unheated cabin, but they can crash there for the first 2 weeks. Or we'll go.
So as you develop the relationship, opportunities open up but it's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement, but we've got people that just like doing that. I mean, we've got one gentleman, he's like, look, I run a big company, and I usually don't see these guys anymore after they arrive because like their foremen take care of them. But I will pick every single one up at the airport because that kind of 1.5 hour drive just gets me the opportunity to talk to them, to get to know them, to kind of gauge them a bit. So these guys, they take like 10 to 15 guys every year. So this guy, he goes picks somebody up 15 times a year. But he's like, look, I love the program, and I just want to kind of get a feeling for the guys, and that drive really gives him that opportunity.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing that we found. And I found you on Instagram. I was just scrolling Instagram, and
and props to my I've got a college student working for me who does my kind of Instagram ads, and props to him. I have to give him a bonus.
Yeah, well, when you, and this is the same for all advertising, but when you hit the pain, somebody's going to respond. And the pain that I always see is we can't find enough good people. And as soon as I heard European Craftsmen, I was like, oh, to us, that's a magical filter. It feels like like you've got a herd of unicorns over there. And how do we get some of the unicorns? Now, everybody's a human and they're all different, but to have somebody who's highly skilled and proud of what they do is half the battle. And then we've just got to get them working on our team and make sure our team can keep up with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the question I haven't asked that I need to know? What's the unknown?
The unknown. I mean, we've covered a lot. We've covered. Yeah, I mean, probably like a worry some might have is what if things don't work out the way they're supposed to work out? What if after 4 or 5 months a person has homesickness, whatever else, right? So, and that can happen. I would say about 5% of guys quit early, and that just happens. 5% it's not a huge number. It's 1 out of 20, but it happens. And we usually encourage candidates to go to their employer first and talk to them. But sometimes it's not as easy. Sometimes they've got a supervisor they don't get along with or something. And then if it's a foreign language, a foreign kind of country, they come to us, and then we usually facilitate a conversation between everyone. And either we find a solution where a candidate may switch teams or switch supervisors or be put on a different job site, or if worse comes to worse, they quit earlier and we place them somewhere else. What we always do is we try to find a good solution for everyone. So we'll provide our partner companies with like a credit towards their next candidate and stuff like that. So we do that, but it can happen, and I think we also need to set that expectation that it's just the way things are. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're dealing with humans, not robots.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Sam, apart from that, I think sorry.
I was just going to say, it's fantastic. I feel like I've covered everything. I guarantee you, though, somebody's screaming right now at the YouTube channel or at the podcast, like, you didn't ask this.
Yeah.
But I'll leave that to everybody else. If they want to reach you, how do we find you? If anybody else wants to take the next step, tell us what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, happy to also just chat about, the European apprenticeship system if somebody's interested. You don't even have to be interested in our services per se. So you can reach me at sam@journeyman.io. So that's .io, sam@journeyman.io, or journeymanstaff.com. So that's journeymanstaff, all in one word, .com. That's our website. Dominic, you also told me, because if you go to journeyman.io, it's actually a German page. We'll put a link there that also redirects you to the journeymanstaff.com website, right. If that needs to be.
Yeah. So journeymanstaff.com is the best way to
exactly. Journeymanstaff.com.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think I found you on LinkedIn as well. It's Samuel Schneider.
Yeah. It's you can use sam@journeyman.io. You can use Samuel at journeyman.io. Both goes to me. And on LinkedIn, it's Samuel Schneider. Just my name basically, and it should say Journeyman right there and up in the title. So
yeah,
and I think and I are connected. So
yeah, we're connected. If anybody needs to, they can also contact me. I just have to say thank you. It's really interesting and unique, and it's also, it feels like it's putting some good out in the world. Hey, let me ask you one more question. How many of you guys come over and then get married?
I mean, good question, great question. We do. I would say we have about. So apart from getting married, so we have about 10 or 20% of people actually staying in the US. So not just doing their year, but actually staying long term. And of course, one of the easiest ways to do that is to fall in love with a lovely lady and get married. Yeah, sure. So we've had two. One guy I know certain has got married. They even have kids now. So we've got a couple of journeyman kids out there somewhere. He stayed over. But yeah, I mean, we always encourage that. I mean, if it happens, it happens, right?
Yeah, cool. Who knows where this world leads, but I really appreciate meeting you. I appreciate you taking the time, especially because you're moving as we speak. You've got to move from.
Yeah, I had to move a couple of boxes in the background so it wouldn't show on the video.
Before we even started on the video. Okay. Sam, thank you so much. And folks, if you have any questions for Sam and you can't reach him, reach me here on YouTube. Remember to leave a like, a comment, a share, something like that, and we'll make sure that gets over to Sam. Thanks, Sam.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dominic. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Well. Thanks, Sam, for joining us. And that was really cool to hear about Europeans, just the approach to training, how to bring people into the trades over there versus how we do it over here, and how your crew is interested in coming over here for all sorts of really personal reasons. But who wouldn't want to come over here? It's so cool. There's so much to do. And there's, I guess, romanticism from that way coming this way just as much as many people listening backpack through Europe or through Southeast Asia. You know, at some point, it's cool to go somewhere else and try out the culture. Look, here's some of the key takeaways. First of all, folks, you got to be an employer worth working for. Like, are you the kind of company somebody would want to come work for? And you can use the onboarding document as a tool to help you level up your game again and again, and just keep doing that. Just text me and get that onboarding document. Even if you're already doing a great job at onboarding, why not use this as a reality check and see if maybe there's some steps that other companies are using that you're not, that you could take advantage of. I also want you to think about who you want on your team. You know, are you ready for skilled tradespeople to come over and maybe share their information from across the pond with us here? Remember, these guys come over for 18 to 24 months. Now, look, you might think your city's boring. You know, it's really common when you're from somewhere to think it's not that exciting, but that's not the case. And we heard that from Sam here. To a traveler, it might be the most interesting experience. And I'm talking to you who are running companies in ranching areas, cattle areas, big cities, surf towns, ski towns, college towns, mountain towns, railway towns, but also towns and cities that don't sound like anything special at all. Now, I know one of my early ancestors, like 2 generations back, actually moved to Colorado to work in the silver mines before they moved back to Italy because their contract or whatever was up. And so they moved back. So if I didn't already love fishing and hunting, Colorado would be a place I'd love to go. So don't overlook the fact that where you live might be really interesting to somebody from Germany, Austria, or Switzerland. And why wouldn't it be great to bring somebody over from there to work with your crew? It'd just be fantastic. So keep that in mind. And if you want to reach out to Sam, I want to simplify and solve a common business problem, but I want to stay in the theme of what we're talking about today. So I was looking through our emails and some of the meetings that we've had over the last little while, and I was talking to the other coaches on the team. We've got 4 different companies that we're either talking to or we're working with that all have brought up this similar challenge. And I wonder if you've ever had this. It's tough to get buy-in from my team on standardized time tracking. So is your team giving you a hard time about time tracking? Are they kicking back? And they say the same things all the time, right? Yeah, it takes me longer to pull out my phone and log in than it does to do the task, so I don't do it. Or if you work in a shop, it takes me longer to walk all the way across the shop to do it. It's common excuses. And so I'm talking to you, Nick and Alan in Kamloops, BC. I'm talking to you, Jack and Mark in Surrey, BC. I'm talking to Eduardo in New Mexico, and I'm talking to Brad B in New Hampshire. Now, you guys know that I changed the names to protect the innocent, but I'm pretty sure Jack and Mark in Surrey know exactly who I'm talking about because that's pretty close to their names, et cetera, et cetera. So a little shout out to you guys, but we're all dealing with those same issues. So how do you solve that? You got to have systems in place. And you and me as the leaders, we have to continue to repeat the same few things again and again. It's really no different than raising kids. Have a handful of rules and stick to them. If time tracking is important to you, it's got to be important to everybody else. And you have to make it the flavor of the day for a year, if that's what it takes to make sure everybody does time tracking. And the argument that I like to use, or argument might be the wrong word. The reason that time tracking is important is it's going to help me estimate better so that you actually have a fair amount of time to do a job. And it's not unreasonable when I come to you and say, we need to build this thing in 3 days when everybody knows it's going to take 5. So time tracking is going to help us with that. Anyways, if you want the onboarding SOP, which takes you right back to the very beginning of making sure you bring people into your company the right way, so they understand the rules, they understand what quality means, they understand what making commitments means. All of that starts at the very beginning. So grab the onboarding SOP from me. And again, for those of you that were driving and didn't get a chance to write it down, the cell phone number is 315-903-7853. And just say onboarding SOP, real simple. Send me that text and I'll email it back to you. Anyways, folks, listen, I appreciate you checking in. This is just waiting time. One day you and I are going to have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee across the table. And that's actually what I look forward to. Until then, have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.